All right, today we are going to have a little bit of a discussion about notes and what they are used for, what their intention is, and exactly what it is that you are supposed to do with them once you have them. So we're going to we're going to take a look at some scientific data on how people remember or how people forget, however you'd like to look at that. Okay. Now, a lot of people believe basically that the purpose of notes is um, you come to class, the teacher talks, the teacher writes things on the board, you write things down in your notes, and that is your job. If I were to accuse somebody of being a bad note taker, a lot of times they will get upset and they'll go, "No, I take good notes," and they will pull out their notes and they will turn page after page after page of meticulously detailed notes that are virtually identical to the notes that I have given them through the lessons and through the PowerPoints and things like that, even to the point where even if there's just a stray smudge or a stray little pencil mark on the page, they will have that copied down as well. But when I see things like that, when I see a stray marked down in their notes, I'm like, well, what is this thing? How come this is there? And they'll say, well, I don't know. It was in your notes, so I put it in my notes too. Well, there's a problem there. Okay, that we have something in our notes that we absolutely do not understand. We did not understand it from the moment that we saw it, but we just blindly and mindlessly copy it down simply because it is in the notes. That is not good note taking. Also, some people will say, well, I take down every single word that you say. Okay, and I'm going to say that that is not good note taking either. Okay, copying word for word every single thing that the teacher puts on the board, that is not necessarily good note taking. It might not be a bad first step for you to do to copy everything down, but then ultimately what you have to do is you have to paraphrase, or you have to shorten or condense or summarize these topics in order to get them committed to your memory. Okay, because you got to remember the teacher is basically providing you with information on a textbook type level. They're providing you all of the academic information, all in kind of in mass. Okay, that's not good note taking. The average teenager, the average math student is not going to sit down and memorize all of that. So you have to kind of break it down into smaller pieces of information so you can actually get some things committed to memory, get a knowledge base going so that you can then start kind of filling in the cracks with some of the details. Okay, so taking notes, and some people, here's the way they take notes. They come to class, they bring their notebook, they open their notebook. The teacher talks about things, the students write the things down. The teacher writes stuff, the student writes things down. This teacher looks at a diagram, the student copies the diagram down. And then at the end of the day, we close our notebook, we put it in the backpack, we take the backpack. Tomorrow we come back with the backpack, we take the notes back out, and we write down everything the teacher says. And that's basically what the routine is. We take the notebook out, we write in it, we close the notebook. Then we take the notebook back out, we write in it, we close the notebook. Then we take the notebook back out, we write in it, and we close the notebook. Well, there's a problem there. Okay, taking notes, the purpose of taking notes is not to prove that you know how to write things down. It's not to prove that you can read things on the board or that you can write things in your notebook. The purpose of notes is to give you a resource for studying. And that's where we have a massive disconnection. People are not using their notes for studying purposes. They take notes because the teacher tells them to take notes, and then they do nothing with them. Well, if you do nothing with the notes, then the notes do nothing for you. Okay, so before we get into kind of what you should do with it, let's look at some data here, how people remember or forget. Now you can see here on the left-hand side of the chart, we have percentages, and I'm referencing the percentage of the information that people remember. So obviously at the top, 100% of the information. That's where we would love to be. We would love to remember 100% of everything that happens. And of course, as you come down the page, we've got down to 30%. of the information, and safe to say if you find yourself anywhere near only remembering 30% of the information, that's not going to put you in a very good spot as far as potentially passing any classes, much less a high school math class. On the independent axis here, the x-axis, we have elapsed time, and this is kind of a staggered grade of graph here. I don't have the same set increments. Obviously, we start off at the left-hand side with now, so that's assuming we learned something this minute. At that minute, we know a certain percentage of the information. Then what we know 20 minutes from now, 1 day from now, 7 days from now, 31 days from now, and 3 months from now. As you can guess, as time goes by, there's going to be a pretty rapid decrease in the amount of information that you actually retain. So let's look at what studies show. Okay. Now, this red line that is shown now represents how you remember information from now as you go forward. So obviously now, as I give you all the information, let's assume that you completely understand 100% of it, which in math, high school math, that may not even be the case. You may not even understand 100% of it right off the bat, but it at least is fresh in your memory banks. Now look what happens is when a short amount of time as 20 minutes go by. You're gone from 100% of the information retained down to 80%. You've lost a fifth of the information on average. 20% of the information in 20 minutes is gone. So even in the same class period, you may find yourself in a situation where you're going to have to go back to your notes to look up something that was already said just in that class period. Look, as a day goes by, we're down to nearly half of the information gone. We've only got about 50% of the information left. As a week has gone by, as a month has gone by, and as 3 months has gone by. Not good. Okay, now studying. Okay, studying is the process of renewing this information in your brain. Okay, we obviously cannot remember everything just from hearing it once or seeing it once. Look at the graph. We cannot retain the information from one exposure. But let's say after 20 minutes, instead of just hearing it once and then letting time goes by, let's say 20 minutes later, we reread the notes. We have a look back at it. We watch another video. We see the lesson again. Let's look what happens now. Well, the first thing you'll see is your information banks. Obviously, it kicks you back up to 100%. We have refreshed it in our memory. We're now back at 100%. But look what happens. Okay, the graph is still falls from there. Obviously, as time goes by, you continue to lose the information. But are you losing the information at as fast of a rate as you did only from being exposed to it once? No, the graph's slope is less steep. We are retaining the information for a longer period of time before we ultimately lose it. I mean, when we learned it now, after 3 months, the graph was bottomed out. But by renewing it just 20 minutes later, look 3 months down the timeline, it's not bottomed out. We still have like a 40% retention rate. 40%, that's still not good, but it's better than where it was. Now let's say, all right, we read it, we learned something now, and then we refreshed our memories 20 minutes later. Now let's say the next day we pull our notes out again, we read the information again, we look over the problems again. So obviously at that point our knowledge level is kicked back up to 100%. Now look at the graph. Is it as steep as the two before it? Not hardly. It is really trying to flatten out. And when you look at the longevity of this thing, again, we're still only, I mean, the first 3 lines, now 20 minutes, 1 day, those aren't very far apart. But 3 months is a long way away from now. 20 minutes or 1 day, that's a very small amount when you're comparing it to an amount of time like 3 months. But look where the graph is trying to bottom out at. We are up closer to 60% retention because we have renewed this in our brains 2 and 3 times now. It is becoming part of our knowledge base at this point. Again, let's say a week goes by. We look at the information again. We reread it again. Obviously, it kicks us back up to 100. Look at the graph. Okay, it's bottoming out near 70% now. What happens after a month if we reread it again? Okay, every time we expose ourselves to the information, it is becoming more and more ingrained in our permanent memory banks. And this is what studying needs to be able to do for us. Okay, now consider the information that is shown on the screen now. I'm going to add in a couple of lines. Okay. Well, looking at those lines, what do you think those two lines, those two time periods might represent? We have one line here about in the middle of the graph that is past 7 days, but not nearly up to a month. And then we have another line well down the line that's represented outside of 3 months. What might these two lines be? Well, let's think about it. When we start a new unit, now, okay, when we start a new unit, what might happen sometime between like a week to 2 weeks after we begin a unit? Well, typically we take a test of some kind. There is some sort of an assessment at the end of the unit that measures our knowledge. Okay, so this first yellow line right there down the middle of the graph, that might represent a unit test. So along those same lines, what do you think might be represented for maybe 5 months down the line? Chances are it's probably a semester exam or probably possibly a tax or a star or something like that. Point being, there is an assessment way out there that is going to need to measure our knowledge. Now, putting all this information back together, look at those 5 different curves that I talked about. When you sit down to take your test in a week or 2 weeks, which one of those curves would you really want to be on? You want to be on that red one, knowing about 35% of the material? Would you rather be on the orange one, the next one up, that's knowing about 55% of the material, the blue one around 70%, the purple one around 90%? Walking into a test, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to discover that, you know what, I would rather know more of the material. But imagine the red curve. If all you do is hear the material one time and close those notes and never look at it again, look at where your knowledge level is going to be by the time it's time to take that test. You're not going to hardly know any of it. And then imagine how much more difficult that is going to be by the time we wait all the way for a semester test or a tax or a star or anything like that. Our knowledge will be basically non-existent if we never found time to look back and review our notes. Okay, so part of what I'm talking to you about, if you want to be successful in this class, if you want to be successful in any high school math class, you're going to have to dedicate 20 or 30 minutes worth of time every day towards that class. Now, are you going to have homework every single day? No, you may not have homework every single day, but that is not a day off when the 20 to 30 minutes is concerned. What can you do with that time? Well, that's where you look back. You open up some of those old notes, you reread it, you kick that knowledge level back up to 100% in your mind, and the more times you're able to do that, the more times you're able to refresh that memory, the more gradual that curve becomes, and you'll find that you're retaining that information for a much longer point in time. So do not think notes is an open and shut case. The only way notes work is if you continue to open them up and reread them.